Three whistleblowers took the stand in a highly charged hearing yesterday, challenging some of the administration claims on the terror attack in Benghazi, Libya, on September 11th of last year. But even before the testimony was done, the spotlight turned to how media outlets were handling the story. Here are some of the headlines that have emerged from some major media outlets. The LA Times headline is, "Partisan Politics, Little New Information at House Benghazi Hearing." The Huffington Post headline, "Benghazi Hearing Reveals Incompetence, but No Cover-Up." The USA Today headline, quoting the administration, "White House, Benghazi Hearing Covers Old Ground." And from the San Francisco Chronicle, "GOP Benghazi Hearing Stokes Political Controversy." Dan Gainor is with the Media Research Center and wrote an opinion piece on this for us here at FoxNews.com that caught our attention. Dan, thank you for being here. I want to ask you, because that just gives you sort of a flavor for how some are covering this. But if you look at sort of across the mainstream media, it was a collective yawn in response to yesterday's Benghazi coverage. First, let me ask you why.
Well, they've been doing this throughout. This is sort of a continuation of their policy to minimize a scandal that makes Hillary Clinton look really bad. If the why is she's running for election in 2016, and the media have always loved Hillary. And we see it in both the way what they did cover, and frankly, their attempts to minimize it. One of my coworkers did a tally this morning, and they did something like 7 times more coverage of the Arias trial and what's going on in Cleveland than they did on this case, where an American ambassador and 3 other people were killed.
Mm-hmm. And that's the interesting thing when you look at what folks chose to concentrate on. They were much more interested in Jodi Arias and on the tale of what happened in Cleveland, which is, both are horrific crimes, but in neither case were 4 Americans killed in a terrorist attack on this country, which is what that was on our consulate on September 11th. And yet from the beginning, Dan, we've seen so many. She is so under fire for her reports, according to Politico, that now she's in talks to leave CBS ahead of the end of her contract. I mean, as opposed to rewarding her for being dogged and breaking a lot of news on that story, according to Politico, they're in talks to get her out of there early, prematurely.
Yeah, and our own tally had her not doing any of these stories. They had her working on other things, but she set aside this story for 5 full months. That's sort of the opposite of the way journalism usually works. When you sink your teeth into a story, editors say, keep going.
Right, and then there's the Washington Post, which was sent to me yesterday during the hearings, and I thought, there's no way this really happened. I'm not reporting this. We'll see whether this is true. And it turned out to be true. The Washington Post has a social media reporter named Caitlin Dewey, who sent out the following tweet during the Benghazi hearings. Look at it. We have it here for you here. "Most of the people tweeting about Benghazi are rich, middle-aged white dudes who like Chick-fil-A. Surprised?" As far as we can see, no apology from the Washington Post, no attempt to take that back from Caitlin. I mean, she says, look, it's fact, but there's obviously an innuendo in there which is not complimentary in her view.
Yeah, well, you look at it's almost like the code words for ways that they hate the right. It's a racial code words. You like Chick-fil-A. Oh my God, that must make you a bigot. It is just so dismissive in 140 characters of raising questions, a situation where the first time we lost an ambassador, had an ambassador killed since 1979. Ordinarily, journalists would actually care about such things.
Well, even if she had just sent out, that is factual, because they do have some Twitter-like service at the Washington Post that will tell you who's tweeting out information. Her little surprised at the end, it's Chick-fil-A lovers, and we all know the story about Chick-fil-A and its stance on gay marriage. I mean, it's clear that she thought the Benghazi thing was a big nothing burger, but if she's supposed to be some straight news person, there's a query about whether that was appropriate. I want to ask you this, Dan. I mean, does any of this matter? Because if the Washington Post, if the New York Times, if the LA Times, if the San Francisco Chronicle were reporting this in a way that didn't dismiss these whistleblowers' sworn testimony as a yarn, and nothing to see here, and they didn't lay a glove on Hillary Clinton, another thing Dana Milbank printed. Would it make a difference with the American public?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we know this from advertising. If you want to advertise a product, you bombard the public with repeated messages about it. Well, if you want to minimize what happened here and say, oh, it was some confusion or it was incompetence, but it wasn't a cover-up, well, then you repeat it endlessly and the American public will believe it. And, you know, I mean, we saw that even on Jon Stewart last night. Jon Stewart devoted more time last night, 8.5 minutes, than we saw on all 3 morning shows on the networks, you know, running cover for this. That is the message. It's the message of 2016.
Dan, thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.
Up next, it took a jury just over 15 hours to find Jodi Arias guilty of first-degree murder. But as the penalty phase is about to begin, there's now a growing debate about whether this woman, who claims that she would rather die than spend the rest of her life in prison, should get what she claims to want. Jodi Arias in Kelly's court and her punishment next.
I said years ago that I'd rather get death than life, and that still is true today. I believe death is the ultimate freedom, so I'd rather just have my freedom as soon as I can get it.